what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story I've got for you guys today, probably the reason you came to this video, the results of the 2022 Tsunami Nutrition Cup Professional in Italy. So the results were: in 5th place, Milan Sadic. In 4th place, Enrico Hoffman. 3rd place was Mark Hector. 2nd place, Al Shiriak. And your winner of the Tsunami Nutrition Cup, James Hollingshead, also receiving the Olympia qualification here. So James will be going to the Olympia. He's qualified off of a professional win here. I think this was a well-deserved victory from James. I think, like I said, I think his conditioning was pretty comparable to the Arnold Classic UK. He was in shape here. He was just overwhelmingly big. I think he was probably the biggest, the heaviest guy in this lineup. Quads looked insane, as they have been at the past couple of shows. His back was very impressive. I think he won most of the back shots. And overall, I was very impressed with his top 4. I think these guys, even though they were lesser-known names, I think these guys really brought it. A lot of these guys were in really good shape, particularly Enrico Hoffman from Germany. I think he looked phenomenal here. Like I said, I wouldn't have had a problem with him actually sneaking up in 3rd place, but he wound up in 4th. Mark Hector, I think, was a little bit off here compared to how we saw him in Spain last week and how we saw him at the Arnold Classic UK. So I think that's why they moved him down to 3rd place. Otherwise, had he been in shape, I think he probably would have been in contention for 2nd, but I really think that Alfred deserved it based on his conditioning and size. So congratulations to James Hollingshead. One more name added to that Olympia lineup for men's open bodybuilding. Very good show. We still have Legion later on today, so make sure you stay tuned for that and subscribe. Now, next up in the news, GoodVito, Vitaly Ugonikov, the 25-year-old Ukrainian bodybuilding sensation, going for his pro card in early November. So I think right now he's about 4 weeks out, 4 or 5 weeks out from that show in Brazil. Posting these updates. The first update, a rear lat spread on his Instagram story, looking very impressive. Crazy width. That's one of the things that's always impressed me about him, is he's very wide. He's like a little mass monster. Looks very conditioned from the back, but it's the width that really impressed me here. And again, I think he's about 4 weeks out. He also posted a front double bicep in a side chest, and some people were saying that these shots, because of how crazy his legs are and that crazy width, again, you know, the lats and the shoulder width, a lot of people were saying that he's almost more impressive than Michael Krizo. And that's one of the reasons why I'm talking so much about GoodVito, is we've had these guys that have a lot of hype online, these younger guys, these newer guys that are trying to get their pro cards. They get their pro cards and immediately do very well. They seem to be delivering on the hype. And GoodVito, I think, is one of the next guys to do that. I think he's extremely impressive, and for his age, I think he's got a lot of room to improve. He's very, very early on in his bodybuilding career, and that makes the size that he carries that much more impressive. As he continues to refine that and get more mature muscle, I think he's going to be extremely dangerous and extremely competitive. I mean, that side chest pose, for example, insane side chest, and I think the size of his legs, especially in those side shots, the way his hamstrings just hang off the quad like that, hang off the bone like that, I think he will soon be joining Michael Krizo in the club of recent IFBB Pro Card winners. And I think it's going to be too late for him to compete at the Olympia by the time he turns pro. I think he's going to be competing past the deadline if he does pick a pro show after earning his pro card in November. So I don't think there's a chance we'll see him at the Olympia. However, I think he is a very, very exciting prospect in bodybuilding. I think he's a guy that we should all be paying attention to. And I think there's a very, very solid possibility we're going to see this guy with a pro card before the end of the year. So stay tuned for GoodVito. Now, next up in the news, a physique update from Iain Valliere at 10 weeks out. He says he's weighing 275 pounds, and he's in the kitchen cooking up something bigger and better than ever. I actually think Iain looks really good here, and I think his conditioning looks pretty tight, and I think it leads a little bit of credence to the fact that he called out Michael Krizo. There was a guy that commented on one of my posts and said that Iain looks better at 10 weeks out than Michael Krizo looked on stage at that amateur show. And I think Iain actually does look really solid at 10 weeks out. I think his conditioning here is probably comparable to the conditioning that Michael Krizo brought to that show. But again, I don't think Michael Krizo needed to do much or planned on doing much to win that show. I think he knew it was going to be a cakewalk. He didn't peak for it. He didn't bring his best, and he didn't have to. He's that good. But I do think this 10-week out physique update is interesting, especially considering Iain Valliere's comments towards Michael Krizo's conditioning. I think Iain does look good here. I'm curious to see whether Iain's going to be able to improve upon that 7th place finish at the Olympia. Now, another guy that called out Michael Krizo, blessing Awodibu with a recent physique update. This was posted on Bryce Trout 7's Instagram. You can see Blessing's current conditioning, and obviously this is a bigger, fuller, rounder version of Blessing. I don't think he looks as conditioned here as Iain looked, but he does look big. And this is kind of the first time we've seen Blessing's physique not in competitive shape, because he was competing very early on in the season, so we were seeing a lot of physique updates from him looking ripped, a lot of detail in the abs, a lot of detail in the serratus, a lot of vascularity. So this is a little bit of a different update from Blessing. I think he looks pretty big here, but as far as some of the updates that we've seen from some of the other competitors doing the Olympia at 10 weeks out, I think Blessing looks a little behind in terms of conditioning. But I do think it was interesting that both the guys that called out Michael Krizo, they both posted physique updates today. So what do you guys think about how both Iain and Blessing are looking in comparison to Michael Krizo? 10 weeks out from the Olympia, which Michael Krizo might also be, depending on how he does at Prague at the end of the month. If he wins that show, that means he's 10 weeks out from the Olympia right now as well. Now, next up in the news, let's talk a little bit about Brett Wilkin. So Brett Wilkin posted some updates on his story, and I think it was kind of interesting considering Brett Wilkin was also one to leave Hostile Nutrition. Obviously, Nick Walker just left Hostile Nutrition. Him and Fouad Abiad had, I guess you could almost call it a falling out. And Brett responds to a question where somebody asks, do you think we will see Nick still on Fouad's podcast? Obviously, Nick was a very integral part of Fouad's channel, with or without Hostile. And he answers the question, no, period, point blank. And Brett also used to be on that podcast, and it was after he left Hostile that he stopped appearing on that podcast. So I think that's interesting. And I also had heard there was some kind of clause in Nick's contract while he was with Hostile that he couldn't do other podcasts, and I think it was like an exclusivity clause. I don't know for sure, but it had something to do with him appearing on the podcast. So now that he's out of that contract, I'm curious to see what route Nick Walker goes in terms of if he does interviews or other podcasts or whatever he does. But I am curious as to whether or not he remains friends with Fouad and remains a part of that channel now that he's not a part of Hostile. Now, also on his story, Brett Wilkin posted an update 5 weeks out from Romania. And I think he looks absolutely fantastic here. Great side profile, side tricep here. You can see striations in his chest, crazy roundness to his delts and arms, separation in the legs, great midsection. That's one of the things that I think he struggled with at the Arnold. His midsection was relaxing a little bit during the poses, but he's got it very tight here, very deep separated abs. I think Brett looks fantastic, and I believe Romania is the cutoff show for the Olympia. I believe that's the last opportunity to qualify. So we could still see Brett Wilkin in that Olympia lineup. So that's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. Make sure you stay tuned for the Legion coverage later. Make sure you leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.
Dancing in the good light, everybody's feeling warm and bright. It's such a fine and natural sight. Dancing in the good light, everybody's feeling warm and bright. It's such a fine and natural sight. Everybody's dancing.